Long before Marvel perfected the concept of a cinematic universe that most studios are trying to emulate today, there was another film series that began this idea of a shared cinematic universe before it was really even a thing. And it did so flawlessly and effortlessly that we sometimes take it for granted today. I'm talking, of course, about the original Universal Monster series. Although technically this monster series would kick off in 1925 with the Phantom of the Opera, it would have to wait until 1943 before two of its monsters would come together, in Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. These movies were so successful at the time that Universal is still trying to emulate them today, failing on more than one occasion. There weren't any complex, decades-spanning plans driving these film productions. Universal just took a gamble, threw their most popular characters together, and audiences loved it, as they had seen few things like it before. But this concept could only go so far. So Universal would then do something crazy, yet so wonderfully perfect that there has been nothing like it in film since. They would take their two top, yet polar opposite franchises, both tonally and creatively, and merge them together, creating one of the greatest horror comedies of all time.
Hello! Cheers! Hot cheers! You sit down on the inside.
Released in 1948, the perfectly titled Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein brought together not only Universal's star comedy team with Frankenstein's monster, but also Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman, and for the first time since 1931, Bela Lugosi's Dracula.
What we need today is young blood and brains. Oh, don't be bashful. Come.
But the series didn't even stop there. Abbott and Costello would also meet the Invisible Man, the Mummy, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, while I plan to someday do a full deep dive into the careers of Abbott and Costello, I wanted to first take a look at this little subdivision in their filmography. A handful of films that should have never worked, but somehow they do, and there has not been a cinematic universe like it since. This is Abbott and Costello Meet the Monsters. By the time Abbott and Costello began making films for Universal Studios, they were already huge stars on the radio and stage. But now, they were quickly becoming the top moneymaker for Universal Studios, cranking out over a dozen films for the studio in their first 5 years.
It's made into these beautiful ornaments by a smith.
By a smith?
Mm-hmm.
Well, couldn't Jones make it?
Oh, sure, but he'd still be a smith.
How can a Jones be a smith? A Jones is a Jones.
He's got to be a smith in order to make these.
Jones don't have to be a smith.
Definitely.
Why should Jones change his name just to make these things?
Don't change his name.
Meanwhile, the Universal Monster series was reaching its peak, with most of the films produced in the series now being sequels and remakes to their 1930s predecessors. But when Universal began finding new success in combining these monster franchises together, they realized the potential that could come from more of these team-ups. At around the same time, Abbott and Costello had released a haunted comedy called Hold That Ghost.
What is this?
Somebody blew out the candle.
No, that's just the wind.
Since when does the wind eat garlic?
Oh, now, come.
Here, take this.
Okay.
Yeah, what are you shaking about?
Don't let none of us get nervous. That's all.
No. We're
Don't
all
get
right.
nervous. That's all.
Everything's all right.
I'm calm.
I see that.
Come on.
This film's success led Universal to seeing the potential in future horror comedies starring the duo. Putting two and two together, Universal decided to take their success with combining their horror franchises, as well as Abbott and Costello's success in horror-themed comedies. On paper, the concept shouldn't work, throwing these two completely different franchises together, but somehow it really works in the end. Part of the reason I think this first film works so well is because the plot is taken as seriously as it was in the other Universal monster films. The fact that Abbott and Costello are there is just incidental.
I came all the way from Europe because Dracula and the monster must be destroyed. Together we must find them. Oh, no, no, wait a minute. Let's not start that all over again.
I can't go. I got a date. In fact, I got 2 dates.
But you and I have a date with destiny.
Let Chick go with destiny.
In fairness, the movie gives them time to do what they do best, showcasing their great comedy routines.
How about the 2 girls we had last week?
All right, let's not talk about
You got no kick coming.
I'm not kicking.
You had the best looking one.
So what?
Yours had teeth.
Look, Wilbur, yours had teeth, too.
Did you see that tooth?
Yes, I happened to see it. But
Mine had so much bridge work, every time I kissed her, I had to pay toll.
what's the use?
I've always shared with you.
That you have.
If I had 2 cigarettes, I'd give you 1.
That's right.
And if I had 2 pair of shoes, I'd give you a pair.
Don't I know that?
And if I have 2 girls...
Well?
Why don't you light that cigarette, put on those shoes, and take a walk for yourself?
But it also gives the Universal monsters time to be, well, monsters.
Deeper. Tell me what you see.
Then their storylines converge, and the chemistry is instant.
Hey, you'll have to get your dog away from the phone. I can't hear a word you're saying.
This movie was originally titled The Brain of Frankenstein, but fearing audiences would believe it to be a straight-up horror film, Universal decided to change the title, giving us one of the most perfect film titles in all of history.
Chick, do you know what could happen if I meet Dracula in the woods?
I'll bite.
Oh, no, you gotta stand in line.
And their gamble paid off. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein was the second highest grossing film for the studio that year, and would be one of the top earners for Universal in the 40s. Despite the massive success that was to follow, though, the film would mark the final appearances of Dracula, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's monster in this chapter of Universal Pictures. But Abbott and Costello would continue their team-ups with more Universal monsters, starring next with the Invisible Man.
Now I'll show you who is the boss.
No. I'll show you who's boss.
Who said that?
The voice is familiar, but I can't quite place the face.
Although it's teased at the end of Meet Frankenstein, it was meant as more of a clever ending than a hint of things to come.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping to get in on the excitement.
Who said that?
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Invisible Man.
Seeing the financial potential, however, Universal had their next installment of the Invisible Man franchise rewritten to include Abbott and Costello. While their characters in this film aren't the exact same characters from its predecessor, the film still gives them time to do what they do best.
You leave that alone. Touch that again, I'll break both of your arms. You take this grip. I told you not to touch it, didn't I? Now give me that bill. I said put it there and leave it there. That's better. Now you... Give me that bill. Give me your hand. Put it in my hand like that and leave it there. Now, take this grip here. Take it down there to the car and I'll be right with you.
While also interjecting the special effects and horror elements that made the Invisible Man film so memorable. It's another balance that shouldn't work, but it does, using the nature of the Invisible Man as a way to craft jokes, as he helps Lou win a boxing match in the story.
I don't know. Either these old eyes are failing or that boy hits like greased lightning.
Go to your corner.
Again, Abbott and Costello have their own time to shine as a comedy team with their great wordplay and physical comedy.
So you let him get away. Now we can't collect the $5,000 reward.
Double crosser.
You kicked me. And what's the idea of calling me a double crosser?
That was me. That was him.
That
was him.
Now don't lie. Ow, ow.
But as an audience, we're always reminded we're technically still in this universe where monsters exist. Also, Lou Costello was just perfect at acting scared, something he does in all these films, but that never gets tiring.
I must be seeing things.
Next, Abbott and Costello would appear with a monster making his first appearance for Universal, although the actor was no stranger to horror films himself. Boris Karloff would play Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, alongside the duo in his second film with them. He had earlier played a character in the aptly titled Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer, Boris Karloff. While this film was also a success, it depended a lot more on physical comedy gags than the verbal routines that Abbott and Costello were so famously known for.
Hey, Slim! Slim! I got him, Slim! I got him! Oh, Slim.
At this point in time, Universal really wanted to capture the success of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, so they began to pit their star team against anything imaginable, including Martians, the Keystone Cops, and eventually, the Mummy.
Hey, Abbott! Where you going?
Although they would appear on television with the creature from the Black Lagoon,
I said Frankenstein!
Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, released in 1955, would be their final film for Universal.
Give me one of those implements.
Here, take your pick.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, hold it. That's a shovel. Here's the pick over here.
Well, I picked the shovel. The shovel is my pick.
Oh, no, this is a pick. This is a shovel.
That's what I picked is the shovel.
How can a shovel be the pick?
Look, if I'd have wanted to pick, I'd have picked the pick. But instead, I picked the shovel because the shovel is my pick.
Oh, in other words, you don't want to pick the pick because the pick is a pick and the shovel isn't a pick. If you pick the shovel isn't a pick.
Now you've got it.
Now I got it. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Although it had sent them on many great, memorable adventures, the studio now seemed to be using their names as just a way to sell their movies, instead of prioritizing the simple comedy scenarios that made them resonate with audiences just a decade earlier. Universal would make one more Creature from the Black Lagoon film in 1956, before this classic monster film series would finally end. Abbott and Costello made one more film together, independently from Universal, before their split and Costello's early death in 1959. I wish today more film studios took the chances that Universal took in the 1940s. They weren't overly concerned with continuity or the bigger picture or establishing a big franchise. They just wanted to give audiences something they hadn't seen before. Now, I'm sure the motivation was largely financial too, but I'm glad for that, because it gave us some of the most inventive horror comedy films of all time. I would love to see more of this type of random team-up in this day and age. Throw Key and Peele in the It universe, or give us a Marvel film with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. It might not work, sure, but at least it would be something different, and at least it would be taking a chance. Also, if Hollywood can learn anything from these older movies, it's that not everything needs to be a cinematic universe, or at least movies shouldn't have to force it. In any event, I'm thankful that Universal took this chance way back in 1948 and gave us an amazing little collection of horror comedies that are still worth talking about today.
Smell it. Chick. Oh, what did I do? Hey, Chick, I don't like you like that. Come on, Chick. Be just like you used to be.
Ah, go away with it.
Atta boy, I'm happy. That's just like you used to be.